The reason why we don't heal emotionally is because there's so many protection mechanisms in the mind. We call them like protectors or survival strategies. Those survival strategies are saying, it's okay, you're fine, keep going. We're wearing this like everything's awesome, I'm fine. What the breath is doing is it's activating a part of our brain that's actually releasing the mind. And when we release the mind, we also release the survival strategies. We release the protectors that are in the mind. Now, when we do that, then we drop into our body. Our body actually has this innate intelligence. It knows how to process emotion. The mind just hijacks it and blocks it. When we release the mind, when we calm down the part of our brain that is our limbic system, when we really let our limbic system chill out and our brain stem, basically like turned off the survival strategies, essentially, all of the awareness and energy goes into the body. And when the awareness and energy is into the body, then the body's just going to process whatever the body needs to process.
What's up, friends? Welcome back to The Best Medicine. It's Angie, and today's episode is with one of my best friends and the founder of Pause Breathwork, Samantha Skelly. She is a speaker, a best-selling author, a breathwork facilitator, and she's freaking hilarious and awesome sauce and one of my favorite humans on the planet. So I am so excited that you are getting to hang out with her today as well. We chat all things emotional eating, how she overcame body image issues and eating disorders, childhood trauma, scarcity mindset. We do an experiential breathwork exercise. She chats about how she built Pause Breathwork. This episode's really freaking good, and more than anything, Sam is one of those people that after you listen to her, you cannot leave and not feel more joy and more hope. And she's such a reminder that our breath is our superpower and that our bodies are so intelligent and our bodies want to heal. And we forget that we are the drug. We forget that we are incredibly powerful. So often we're giving that power away instead of realizing that when we are quiet with ourselves, we can find the answers and we can truly heal. So I'm really excited for you to laugh and learn with Samantha Skelly. To check her out, head to pausebreathwork.com and at Samantha Skelly on Instagram. And of course, if you love this episode, let us know. Tag us at Angie Lee Show, at Official Mike Lee. And let's dive into this juicy convo with Sam. Speaking of feeling good, Sam. Oh man, here
Welcome.
we are.
Hi, what's up, guys?
This is nuts balls. You know why? I forgot
Tell
Mike
me.
was here for a second. I'm like, what would I say to Sam? Nuts balls.
Nuts balls.
Because Sam and I have talked about this so many times. Remember a few years ago when I was like, oh, maybe my brother and I would start a show one day.
I remember
you know?
that. You've been
So
talking about
many
this forever.
times.
So
Yeah.
great.
That was like in 2017.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Here we are, everybody.
And here we are.
We're 100 now. Old as balls.
Yo, these bloat capsules. I'm like, those are good. That's good shit. Anyway.
Soul blow capsules. I know. You walked in and I knew right away. I was like, girl, you look bloated. Let's get you some blow
He's
caps.
like, you either ate a burrito or you're pregnant. Here you go. That was my entry today.
I want a before and after picture.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, no, they work. I'm so excited to have you on. Sam Skelly, everybody. Founder and CEO of Pause Breathwork. It's interesting. I actually did some homework. I know we've been friends for a long, long time, and you've been friends with Angie forever, and I know a lot about you. But I dove in. I started listening to your podcast. I was creeping on IG, checking out everything. I was just like, I wanted to get a couple little things. Obviously, you are like the queen of breathwork. You're like OG in the space. It's changed your life. You changed so many people's lives. But I'd love to, if it's okay, kind of hear about your childhood a little bit. I heard you talking about that, and I think it's very emblematic of who you are as a person and what you do now, and specifically about, you know, the eating disorders and how it all kind of led you to down this path that you are right now. I found that fascinating and something I didn't really know much about, so I think it'd be cool to kind of dive in there from the beginning.
Yeah, man. Well, I grew up as a dancer and a child actress. So literally my whole life was like on stage in front of a camera, and being a dancer, you're staring at yourself like in these tight uniforms all day long. I can remember being like 12 years old and being in the bathtub and just looking down my body and being like, I hate my body. Like it was this feeling of like, I hate my body. I hate myself. Everything. Ugh. And when I was 18, all the body image issues kind of went into disordered eating, where I was on like over 50 diets in less than 4 years. I'd wake up in the morning And the first thought in my mind was like, I can't wait to go to bed tonight. Not because I wanted to die or anything, but because my anxiety and my thoughts in my mind were just so intense. It was like spinning, 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 thoughts, thoughts, thoughts. And so I tried literally everything in order to calm my anxiety down and like really learn to love my body or accept my body. And I had extreme body dysmorphia. Like I was this size and I thought I was obese. So it was weird, right? It was this like interesting thing of obsession. And then I tried to mask it with eating with bikini competitions, right?
Mm.
You did that too, didn't you?
Yeah.
Right. So I was like, oh, well, if I go into this really regimented bikini competition, then everything's managed and monitored and then I have control over it. And at the root of it, it was this deep rooted worthiness wound. I didn't feel like I was good enough. And I felt like if I wasn't perfect, I was as good as mud, right? And I grew up in a family where my dad was a professional hockey player. So he installed in me in a very young age, like, you got to work really hard. You got to, it was like this high achiever mentality. Like, we would be 7 years old playing hockey on the street, and my dad wouldn't let me win unless I actually won. And I was playing against him, who was a professional hockey player. You know,
Sounds familiar.
yeah, right,
Sounds
right.
very
And
Getting
familiar.
some
you know what's
PTSD right
super
now.
crazy is literally my dad a couple months ago when they were down visiting us in San Diego, after a few mezcal margaritas, my dad's like, I gotta share something with you. And I was like, what's up? He's like, I was so hard on you as a kid.
Wow.
Yeah. My body knew it, but he never said it. So it didn't click. And then once he was honest and said that, I'm like, shit, that's so right. And he's like, I was projecting my insecurities on you. And
Mm.
he just like totally opened up, got so vulnerable. And it was like a really beautiful breakthrough.
Wow.
But anyways, as I was having all of these eating disorders and perfectionism and all of this stuff going on, I tried all the things in order to help myself, right? I tried like talk therapy, which didn't work for me. I tried like Reiki. I tried, all this personal development, all the like everything, and nothing was really helping. So I ended up finding breath work, or better said, like it found me in Bali. And I did this class, which was a 3-hour breathwork class. And you guys have both done it. So you know what's up. At the end of the class, I was like, this is freaking phenomenal. Like, how does the whole world not know this exists? And yeah, from that period, which was 13 years ago, like that was 13 years ago today, which is nutty. I have just been obsessed with it and it's just turned into my career now.
Yeah. I resonate with that so much as you talk about your childhood and how I think the same way. I mean, my parents are great, but especially my dad, you got happiness and success and told you were good enough through achieving
That's
things.
it.
And that's a really dangerous
Mm-hmm.
route because then you can't just be you. Like just
Mm-hmm.
you aren't
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's kind of what you went through.
It's like I interpreted that as I am loved for what I do, not who I am. And so it's like, oh, you got first place, but that's amazing. And like the love came from my achievements. And so I kept chasing the achievements because I knew that was a sure way to get love. And you know, it's hard to get the healthy kind of love that is nourishing for our nervous system. So we keep doing it in a disordered way versus in a healthy way.
But what's so cool about that now that you have this like perspective is you can break that loop, like break that cycle,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that's how our parents were. I'm sure that's how their parents were and go on and on. And now, like when you have kids one day, like you can kind of break that cycle. I don't know. I always say that to myself. I think
Yeah.
that's really important.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, that's the whole purpose of literally life, is to create offspring and write a new legacy and lineage, right? I mean, literally as animals here, that's what we're here to do. So it's like,
Yeah.
how can we do better than who brought us here and just keep doing that?
I remember my mom was saying how she would get home from school and her snack would be Wonder Bread and ketchup every single day because they were so poor. Like my mom grew up super poor. And she was saying to me, like, I am breaking all of the patterns of like scarcity and poverty and all of that for my generation. And my mom did an amazing job raising our family. Like you guys know my mom, she's rad. And there's still things that I see from my childhood that I'm like, oh, I'm going to break all of this. And then our kids are going to look at how we did it. And then they're going to break everything that we did because it just like, it is evolving. And I think the kids that are coming into the world now are just like a lot wiser than, like humanity is evolving. It looks like a shit show out there, but I really do believe that we are evolving.
So you're in Bali and you have this moment that just changes your life. It's why, like, literally 3 hours changed the exact trajectory of what you're going to do with your life and why you're sitting here right now, which I think is fascinating. Makes you wonder if it's destiny or what's going
That's
on
so
there. But
nutty.
is is what you did there holotropic breathing? I know I get a little bit confused because the term breath work is thrown around a lot, and there's all these different, modalities and ways to do breath work. So, which kind was it, and what do you prefer?
Yeah, with breath work, there's different brands. Like think of holotropic as like a brand of breath work, right? So Stan Groff created holotropic breath work, and it's a type of modality. And generally speaking, how holotropic breath work works, which is what I did in Bali, is people lie down for 3 hours and they breathe for 3 hours. And there's what you call a sitter. The sitter just sits next to them and just watches them breathe to make sure that they feel safe. So that's basically holotropic breath work. There's transformational breath. There's obviously Wim Hof, which most people are familiar with. There's all of these different brands. But when we break it down, breathwork came from the Tibetan Buddhists, and it was called Tumo. And now as breathwork is reemerging, there's different companies that are creating their own type of breathwork. So Pause is a brand of breathwork, and within it, we've adapted different ideologies and ancient modalities from what has worked in the past. So like we didn't obviously create breathwork, obviously, but we've branded it, we've made it digestible, we've made it our intention is to how can we make it as accessible and digestible as possible so people just integrate it into their life.
Yeah, and what's dope is that you've now made it your business, and I can remember the day that you called me,
Yeah, I remember this.
and this is something I love about you. I really feel like this is also why you love breathwork so much, is because it helps people to become more intuitive and to be able to listen to the answer and to know that the answer is actually there versus thinking it's always outside themselves. And you called me and you were like, Angie, I you were driving down the street in San Diego, right? And you said something like you heard God, universe, source, Gus say
Gus.
to you, good old Gus, you heard him say, just teach people how to breathe. You're here to
Mhm.
help people breathe.
Mhm.
And you were like, screw hungry for happiness. I'm
Mhm.
getting rid of that business. I'm gonna phase out of it and I'm gonna go balls to the walls in this business. And that is like you in a nutshell. And a little bit me too. We're just crazy. We're like, this is the new thing, screw everything else. And that is such a superpower, first of all, to have the courage to do that. But tell me about that moment. What happened? Because I knew you were obsessed with it, but then I remember the day when you were like, dude, I want to make this my business. This is going to be my thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, are people going to pay for breath work? Like, is this going to be a thing? I don't know, but I trust Sam because Sam trusts herself. So of course Sam will figure it out. Right? You're just like, I'll figure
Mhm.
it out. and
I
now
remember that
and now it's your
moment.
business.
I remember that moment. I was driving from LA back to San Diego, and I had just finished a mastermind. And I'm driving back down, and I remember feeling like I have outgrown my old business of emotional eating, because obviously having an eating disorder and going through all the body image issues, that was the natural thing to teach, which is teach women, how to get over emotional eating and body dysmorphia and all of that. But I'd gotten to a point that was 7 years after I started the business where I'm like, I am done with this chapter. Like if I have to talk about, emotional eating one more time, like I'm so done with this chapter. And so I was like, what is the next thing? And I could feel it brewing, and I could feel like something else is coming through. And I remember going down the highway and just literally asking God, like, what is my next calling? Like, what am I here to do? And it was like clear as day. You need to teach the world to breathe. That it was as clear as day. And then the next thing was it's called Pause Breathwork. You and I were living together at the time, right? We were living in that house in San Diego, which I love that house so much. I love that chapter. That's like one of my favorite chapters of my life. But I remember as soon as it said it's called Pause Breathwork, I'm driving down the 5 going back to San Diego, and there's just fireworks everywhere. Like every couple miles there's fireworks. And I called my boyfriend at the time. Well, I called him and I was like, is there some sort of American holiday going on today? Because I'm Canadian, so I don't know all the things. And he's like, no, there's no holiday. I'm like, then why is there fireworks literally all down the 5? Like it was wild. And I, you can make anything a sign, right? I'm like, I took that as a sign of like, this is the thing. And then I drove home. I got back to the house that you and I used to live in. And I just remember getting woken up at like 3:30 in the morning with all of these divine downloads of what pause is. And it is crazy. Like I wake up today and I'm like, wait, what? We've certified over 1,000 breathwork facilitators. We have thousands of people all on our app in 25 different countries. It's wild. And it started with this like download of this is the thing that you get to do now. And yeah, it's like just following that innate wisdom that's already in there in our body. Like you said, it's not outside of ourselves. Everything that we need. And I think it's one of these sayings that it's just so natural for people to say the answers are within. So we just dismiss it, right? It's like, yeah, the answers are within, but no, it's actually within.
I remember the first time I did breath work. It was years ago, and it was holotropic. And we were in this room. It was actually in like a church, and someone had rented it, and it was guided breathwork session. It was about 50 people. I knew nothing about it. I knew bring a yoga mat, bring some water. You're gonna sweat, and shit might get crazy. And I remember sitting
And you might
down,
shit your pants.
and you might actually, well,
I
has
just-
that happened?
No, I'm
Okay,
kidding.
I don't know. Maybe it has.
During ayahuasca, maybe.
Yeah. But I remember laying down and going through this, not really knowing what it was. And it was one of the most incredibly powerful experiences of my life because all these emotions came out. You're going through the guided breath work, and towards the end of it, I'm crying. Other people are crying. Other people are laughing. They're screaming. I felt significantly lighter when it was all said and done. My shirt was completely soaked. It was a lot of work, which I didn't expect. And it really felt like a workout, but it felt like all this weight was lifted up off me. So when I think of breath work, I think of it as like releasing emotions, but I'm very curious what's actually happening in your body and your mind, because to be quite honest, some breathwork sessions that I've had has felt just like plant medicine. It's felt like when I've done, mushrooms or different plant medicine journeys, and I'm like, holy shit, the body, like you just said, within yourself has the ability to do this without a pill, without a drink, without, mushrooms. So it's wild to me. And I'm very curious kind of what's happening in your brain and in your body during it.
Yeah. So I was sharing this last night at an event that I was running, but I've probably done breathwork like 300,000 times now at this point after 13 years, right? Just so much, and every single session that I do is completely different. There's some breathwork sessions that I do and I'm like seeing aliens and past lives and it feels so amazing, that's so joyful. And then there's other times where I'm just fighting my ego the entire time. And then everything in between. Like there's one sometimes I love it, sometimes I hate it, but whatever it's worth, here's the vibe. So the mind, the reason why we don't heal emotionally is because there's so many protection mechanisms in the mind, right? We call them like protectors or survival strategies. Those survival strategies are saying, it's okay, you're fine, keep going, da, 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 da. Like we're wearing this like everything's awesome. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. Well, what the breath is doing is it's activating a part of our brain that's actually releasing the mind. And when we release the mind, we also release the survival strategies. We release the protectors that are in the mind. Now, when we do that, then we drop into our body. Our body actually has this innate intelligence. It knows how to process emotion. The mind just hijacks it and blocks it. So when we release the mind, when we calm down the part of our brain that is our limbic system, when we really let our limbic system chill out and our brain stem, then we've basically like turned off the survival strategies essentially. And then all of the awareness and energy goes into the body. And when the awareness and energy is into the body, then the body's just going to process whatever the body needs to process. It's the mind that stops it. So people, after a few minutes of breath work, they're like, why am I crying? Or why do I feel angry? Or why do I feel like, this grief or this, whatever it is? Well, that's the body's way of releasing whatever is stuck in our body. And, growing up and, we're just constantly taking on situations and taking on experiences and we're storing them as trauma in our body. And without the somatic practices to release them, it just stays in the body. And no amount of talk therapy is going to get there. That's why somatic practices like shaking and breath work and all these sort of somatic crying, of course, yeah, all of these things are so important for us to actually release what has been stored in the body. And I'm just amazed with even my own system. Like as I'm working all of my trauma and working my pieces, I'm like, whoa, that's still there. Like that's crazy. It's a constant journey. And every single day with every breathwork session, I'm in curiosity of what is actually happening. So from a scientific level, what we're doing is we're shifting the pH levels in the blood, right? We're changing the biochemistry of the body. We're releasing epinephrine in the brain, which is similar to like adrenaline in the body. And what that's doing is it's making our blood more alkaline, and so it's showing us a different perspective of life. It's getting out of our survival strategies and more into our like truth. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you mind explaining the techniques just so people
For
kind of know
sure.
with
For
the
sure.
holotropic, just so
Yeah.
they kind of understand?
Yeah.
And then, because are you getting more oxygen or carbon dioxide? Because
Mhm.
it's difficult to
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
It's
So
effort.
one of the breath patterns of the pause technique is called the triactive breath. So this is when you go into the belly, up into the chest, out through the mouth. So it sounds like this. And you just keep moving that through. And when you move that through, the body is like, even after 3 breaths, I'm like, whoa, it's like shifting back into alignment. Cause what we're
Yeah.
doing is we're releasing a lot of the like, a lot of like the tension, and especially people who are like empathetic or highly sensitive. It's like we're taking on energy from everything all the time. So,
Do,
Wow.
do you get lightheaded when you do it? I know for me, I get lightheaded, and then my hands will start to like curl up like I'm like a
lobster.
velociraptor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that happen to you, Ange?
Yeah, I get lightheaded, but the ones that I do now are similar to that, where it's I go more slow and low
Mm.
versus intense and fast. I don't do the intense and fast one. I do slow and low. So for me, that's what has worked the best, because I've realized it's not about one specific type being the
Mm-mm.
best. It's
Mm-mm.
about doing the one that
Yeah.
feels good for you, because honestly, any type of breathing for a few minutes that's
For sure.
intentional is
Mhm.
so healthy for your system. I mean, how I've been doing it is even when I'm driving or I'm about to go do something like a podcast, something where I need to feel in my body, I'll just intentionally breathe like that. I'll usually do like smell the flowers, blow out the candles. Smell the flowers, blow out the candles. So I play with that, and then different nostril breathing, and even that just gets me into my body for a second. So it is interesting, because I was telling Mike that I really think the secret to breath work is, yes, if you can go to a class or have a facilitator walk you through an experience or take you through an experience. But to me, how this is applicable to people on a daily basis is someone in their car right now who's pissed off they have to go to a meeting they don't want to go to, or have a courageous phone call, or have the scary conversation, or whatever it may be, and they're really stressed out. To be able to have the skills to take a moment and take a breath is the most powerful skill we will ever develop, because it's almost like self-soothing. It's like we're these little kids who are now grown up, and we have all these emotions of sadness and anger and trauma, and we're just kind of like trying to keep it all into this vessel. But especially men don't emote a lot. We've talked about this a ton. Women, we emote I emote all the time. I cry every 28 days, right? It's like I'm just
I
like
cry on Voxer to Ange almost every week.
I love it. It's like my favorite hobby. It just feels good. I can't
It
even control it.
does,
It just
yeah.
feels cathartic. It feels cleansing. And men especially are holding that in so much. So
Yeah.
I first want to talk about, how can people do this, like step one, on a daily basis? Like, what does it look like for you now on a daily basis? But what would it also look like for a newbie who's like, I only have 10 minutes, Sam.
Yeah.
What does that look like? Because I'm not going to go sign up for a class, or I can't afford to go to
Totally.
a breathwork class.
Totally. Great question. I think one of the biggest things to name here is the fact that the transformation is not correlated with the intensity of breath work. So I was teaching breath work to these 30 military dudes. It was hilarious. I did a retreat for them. And I was teaching the breath work, and they were just going balls to the wall, so intense. I'm like, guys, you don't have to go that hard. Like, that doesn't mean that you're going to get a better result. And that's one of the most important things with breath work, is not thinking that you have to go so intense. I always say to my students, you are your highest authority. So if you want to go slower like you wanted to, and that's actually more nourishing for you, then always follow your body over what you think you should do, because some of the slowest low and slow are actually way more beneficial for a particular type of system than some of the faster ones, especially if you run anxious, right? But if you're first starting out and you're like, okay, where do I even start? Just start with a minute a day. That breath that I just taught, the triactive breath, do it for a minute. And then at the end of a minute, take a deep breath in through the nose, Hold at the top for as long as you can and release. And just begin to feel, because what we're doing is we're going from this very muted, energetically muted place. Adults live there, right? We're kind of living in this like chronic sympathetic, just like type of vibe. So when we begin to bring in more oxygen, more energy, we're shifting the pitch, it's going to have a little bit of an energetic, like, whoa, it feels like electricity. So we want to slowly open up our window of tolerance for that. My first breathwork class was 3 hours. I don't recommend that. Like, go slow and slowly open up that window of tolerance. Because if you are someone who has a ton of trauma and you go and do a really intense breathwork class, it might not be the best thing for you. It might actually do more harm than good. So it's really important to start slow, feel into your body, and really listen to the cues from your body if you want to go longer.
Yeah, I know for me, before every single fight, you're in the dressing room of the arena and you got to stay calm, right? I would always do, pretty sure Dr. Andrew Weil developed it or maybe coined it, but 4-7-8 breathing. And that was just inhaling through the nose for 4 seconds, holding for 7 seconds, and then exhaling loudly through the mouth for 8 seconds. There's so many different variations. But for me, I really noticed, and granted, it could have been a little bit placebo. I didn't care. But every single fight, I would do it in the dressing room before I got my hands wrapped. And I would notice like my cortisol levels would go down. I felt more calm. It honestly felt like I just took a bunch of CBD or I, meditated or took like a Xanax. Like it was like instant relief, which is wild that after 3 or 4 cycles, that 4-7-8, I'd feel that instant relief. And even to this day, I do it when I'm worked up.
Well, you are your own drug.
What do you think is the difference between breath work and meditation? I know a lot of people listening are thinking, well, is this similar? Which one should I do?
This is a really great question. So I have ADHD. Big shock.
I don't know anything about that. Continue.
It was so funny. Like, I always thought I did. And then I went to go get a brain scan. Like, what are they called? EKG or whatever. And it was literally like, I am the poster child for ADHD. So when we have the same brain, shock. So when I was struggling with my eating disorder and I had chronic anxiety, the thought of meditating, or even just the experience of meditating, of trying to quiet my mind and be in a body that felt so uncomfortable, was so intense for me. Technically speaking, meditation is sort of under the breathwork is under the meditation umbrella, right? But traditional meditation that most people know is sitting quiet in silence, trying to control your thoughts, right? So that's
Passive.
exactly passive. Whereas breathwork is an active version of getting the same result, but in my opinion, in a much quicker way, more effective, and way more to the point, especially for someone who runs anxious, who has ADHD, or just a busy brain. So that's basically the difference, right? Meditation is the passive experience. Breathwork is the active experience. But what I love doing now is doing breathwork first so that I can release my mind, get into my body, and then go into a longer meditation. So doing even a 10-minute breathwork experience and then having a half an hour meditation is way easier than just going from a busy mind that's kind of caught in the sympathetic nervous system type of vibe into meditation right away. It's harder.
Real talk. How has breathwork changed your life? Externally, internally,
Hmm.
how has it changed your life?
I'm so much calmer. I, as much as possible, don't react to my environment. I'm able to feel my emotions and really be with them and know that my emotions are not reliable. And the thing that I think I'm upset about is not really about the thing. It's helped me be emotionally wise. Um, and really have spaciousness from my thoughts. Like when I was going through my disordered eating phase, I believed every single thought that I had. You are unworthy. You are not good enough. You suck. You did it. All of the thoughts. Now, when I have a fleeting thought, and I don't really have an inner critic anymore, which is really awesome. I'm so grateful. But when there's like a fleeting thought of, something to do with business, a fear around whatever, like we're really scaling right now and it's very scary. Like it's giving me a lot of like, oh, I have the discernment to know I'm still safe even though I'm making moves that I've never made before, and I'm still protected, and like, yeah, it just gives me this feeling of everything is actually working out in your favor. And it helps me stay connected to God, honestly. It's like every single time that I do breath work, which is every single day, I'm reconnected to God. I'm reconnected to myself. I'm reconnected to this, the invisible field of support that is always around us. And when I didn't have that, I just felt like I felt so human. I felt like I was my thoughts, and I was my limitations, and I was loved for what I did, right? And now there's this duality of, yes, I am human and I have all of these thoughts, and I still go through crazy things, I still get anxiety, I still have shit that happens in my life, but then I also realize like I'm a spiritual being, right? And our job here is to heal our physical bodies through these practices, It's like how can we meet our wounded inner child and help them heal so we can be integrated back into our wholeness.
Holy shit, I love that.
Yeah.
You felt so human,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And being a human is hard. So
Oh, yeah.
it's beautiful to have something that reminds us that we're not just these meat sacks
And I
running
think that's why
around.
people really like get deep into religion.
Absolutely.
It's like, oh, there's something else out there. It's like, yeah, but it's not out there. It's in here. And when we can have the discernment and realize like you don't need to go be so addicted to religion, it's actually what you're searching for is you. Like God is in everything.
It's peace.
Yeah.
We're all just searching for peace.
That's it.
Honestly, yeah.
Peace, freedom, and
I also feel
gummies.
like you peace, freedom, and CBD gummies. I also feel like you look different. For the ladies listening, you have a different vibrancy to you. Your skin, you look really healthy. You look really good. For the ladies listening, they want to know, does breath work help to be nature's Botox?
Well, breathwork definitely helps with getting abs. Like literally,
Wow,
I was
what?
like, Eric would like grab me. He's like, "Dang, your abs!" I'm like, "It's all the breathwork, right?" Because you're like, "Ugh, ugh." I swear,
Every day, like,
yeah, squeezing. It's like I don't need to go to the gym
no,
anymore.
but
I
you
just need to
just
do breathwork.
you can see the glow when
Mm.
people are. I feel like I'm just gonna say this when people are spiritually connected to something bigger than themselves, and that could be church, that could be breath work, that could be plant medicine. There's so many different ways to be connected, meditation, whatever works for you. They look different. There's a
Mm.
glow to them. There's an
Mhm.
essence to them. And I know this may sound crazy, but I see it. I see
Mhm.
it in people.
Mhm.
And it's crazy. I've met like 80-year-old women in Sedona who just look beautiful
Yeah.
and
Oh,
they
yeah.
look so youthful. And you're like, what do you do? And they're like, it's always something about spirituality or being connected to something. It's not a freaking cream. It wasn't Botox. It wasn't something like that. So you're like, oh, wow, it literally changes our external appearance when we nurture our soul like that. So for the gals listening, it's like, this is a beauty hack.
100%. I've literally taken photos of myself before a breathwork retreat and then after a breathwork retreat when I would be doing like 4 hours of work every single day, and I look different.
Hmm.
It is wild because it lightens the load. It's like you're not carrying so much trauma in your body, so there's more spaciousness for life to flow through you.
You look more well rested.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I just wanted to hit on that because I know people have asked that. Like, do people lose weight from breath work? Or I've gotten questions in my DMs even about it when I've posted about doing it. And I'm like, well, not directly, but anytime you have something that is going to get you more into your body, you're going to make better health decisions.
Well, you probably burn calories
Oh,
while you're
shit.
doing
Do
it.
we?
I mean,
Oh, for sure. Like Mike was
yeah,
sweating. Like
yeah.
whenever Eric, I mean, I'm not like a super sweaty person, but whenever I teach, like last night, people were sweating like crazy. Like it is a workout.
What happened last night?
Oh my God.
Yeah, we want to hear about your
Give us
experience
the
last night.
juice.
You guys, I'm like still trying to process it. So we're gonna do
Let's
this
process
together.
it together.
How woo woo are we about to get?
It's like fucking
Fuck.
fuck.
It's fucking.
Like
I like that word.
I still am like, what the fuck happened? So okay, so I taught a breathwork class last night in Encinitas. There was 40 people. They was completely sold out. It was amazing. I left there feeling so happy, like literally on cloud nine. And the last 2 weeks, I've been feeling so good. Like probably some of the best weeks I've ever had. Like my relationships are like solid. My business is solid. Like I've just been feeling like I finally have like dropped into like, yes, this is the good life. So I left the breathwork event. I went to Lazy Acres and I got the traditional, some huge chocolate, some raspberry, some coconut water. And I was just like going to celebrate myself and go home. I pull out of Lazy Acres and all of a sudden my heart starts beating out of my chest. Like, I'm like, what is going on? I start sweating like crazy. And remember, I don't really sweat that much. I was sweating like crazy. I start shaking like crazy. And then my vision goes blurred, completely blurred. And I'm like, holy shit. I get out of my car and I just start screaming for help, like in the middle of the
Whoa.
road. I'm like,
Wow.
help. And then within a few minutes, there was like 4 cars there. There was an ambulance there. I guess I had a panic attack.
I was literally just gonna say
Wait.
I've had one of those. I was gonna say it sounds like an anxiety attack, a
But
panic
but
attack.
I feel it doesn't make sense because I was feeling so good.
Did you do breath work with everybody?
I was doing breath work with everyone, so I'm like, did I take something on that I processed on the road on the way home? Like, it was wild, and I'm still trying to figure it out. But this is the interesting thing, right? It's like our bodies carry so much, so there could have been something that opened up in that breathwork class that I processed on the way home. But I was like, I've never experienced that in my whole life.
So
How
how
do
did
you
it
feel
end?
now?
I mean, I feel great today, but I'm thinking back of like, what the heck was that?
Mm, interesting.
Wow. So how did it end? What did you do?
Some random people just drove me home.
Really?
And you just left your car.
They drove my car home.
At what point did you realize that it was an anxiety attack and not necessarily, a heart attack, wherever your brain goes to the worst case scenario?
Yeah, and I think that was one of the interesting things because when it started happening, I could feel my brain go to the worst case scenario, which I think made the symptoms worse.
Yep.
Of course.
Right. So in that moment, I felt it. I felt it like, "Woo-doo-doo-doo." And then in that moment, I just kept repeating to myself, "You are so safe," and I just kept breathing. You are so safe. You are so safe. And I could feel the energy going from my head all the way down, like back into my body to the point where, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes after, I felt completely normal. But it was one of the strangest experiences of my life.
Wow.
So yeah, full circle, like breath work, obviously helped that. But I'm still in inquiry about like what the heck was that? Because I've never experienced that.
Yeah.
And over the last couple, decade, I really don't feel that anxious anymore.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Mike. I'm popping in here to tell you about my absolute favorite soul product, our Alert Focus Caps. If you're dealing with any morning fatigue, brain fog, or just relying on coffee throughout the day to get you by, I got you. This is a doctor-formulated product that's been proven to increase focus, energy, and concentration with our proprietary blend of a handful of adaptogens, nootropics, and plant extracts. Some of the ingredients we use are lion's mane, mushrooms with neuroprotective effects that reduce brain fog and improve memory. We've got B12 in there, a brain-boosting vitamin that can improve mental clarity, increase energy, and boost mood. We've got all-natural caffeine from green tea extract with CBD to stop any jitters. And finally, one of my favorites, we've got a phenomenal blend of cordyceps in there. This is a powerhouse mushroom that's gaining popularity day over day because it increases oxygen uptake in the brain and increases blood flow to the brain, which will help you fight mental fatigue. You're going to feel alert and dialed in without the jitters, I promise you. You got to go try this out. And exclusive to our Best Medicine podcast listeners, we're offering a 20% off code on Alert and all Soul products. So just use code TBM and make sure to let us know what you think. We've got over 6,000 five-star reviews now, and I'm so proud and I stand by the quality and efficacy of our products. So go use code TBM at mysoulcbd.com and enjoy.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, anyway, that was the crazy shit that
Holy
happened last night. Isn't that
shit.
wild?
That is crazy. I mean, I
Yeah.
know Mike's had anxiety and panic attacks, and I've had a few like that. And it's the scariest moment of your life. You do not wish it upon
Yeah.
anyone. But now what's interesting is I'm not afraid of it happening again to the degree it did 5-10 years ago, because I know I have the tools now
Yeah.
and I feel more in my body as I'm older. And so at 24, when it happened, I was like, I'm dying for no reason, like no reason. And I'm just sitting here in this car. My ex at the time was driving, and I'm just like, this is it. And it's so weird because then you start spiraling up instead of coming down. But now I think what would be helpful is I could use your saying, which is so powerful, I am safe. I'm safe in my
Yeah.
body. It's safe to feel. I'm safe in my body.
Mhm.
I've used that saying so many times when I'm just freaking out, even in not having an anxiety attack, but that's crazy. Thank
Yeah.
God you had the tools.
Right.
So for anyone
Right.
listening who you've experienced anxiety attacks, or to prepare you for one if you do have one, knowing you can really kind of self-regulate in a
Our
sense.
thoughts are so powerful. Like I literally could track my mind going to worst case scenario and then my body having more of a response. And then I could track like really focusing my mind in the complete opposite direction and then feeling how my body completely responded to that. And it was like this beautiful, like it was scary as fuck, but it was also this deep reminder how powerful our thoughts are and how our thoughts are literally creating our reality in every single moment. And it reminded me the power of focus. Like when we focus on something so hard and we're so intentional about it, our body responds and then we're just creating reality.
Good and bad.
Right,
What we focus
exactly,
on.
exactly. And I felt the contrast like boom, it was like holy god. And I think it intensified it cuz I was in traffic, I couldn't see anything. Eric wasn't with me and I was just like, "Whoa, if I was at home, I think it would be a little bit easier." But it went from like one extreme to the opposite extreme so quickly and I did it through my thoughts.
That's wild. I remember, I think it's in the book. It's one of my favorite books. You Were the Placebo by Joe Dispenza.
Mhm.
They talked about this clinical trial that they did. I'm pretty sure it was for cancer research, but the point was half the people in the study had a placebo, just a sugar pill, nothing. The other half had the experimental drug. One patient was actually suicidal and did not tell the doctors. He tried to commit suicide by taking the whole bottle of pills. However, within 10 minutes, he regretted that decision and immediately called the ambulance and said, I took all these pills. I was trying to kill myself. I think I'm dying. They rushed him to the hospital, heart rate through the roof, blood pressure through the roof. They literally think he's going to die. They call up the doctor because they said to the guy, like, what'd you take? And he showed him the bottle. The barcode on the bottle could match with whether or not they had a placebo or not because they didn't know. Turns out he took the placebo.
Yeah.
Turns out he took sugar pills, which didn't do this.
Mm.
The moment they told him, immediately his heart rate started going down. He started breathing and everything changed. And literally his body almost killed himself through that thought and immediately changed as soon as he found out I only took the placebo. And I find that incredible. I mean, I used to use that ideology and that mentality in fighting and in boxing. It's like how powerful your thoughts and your brain are and how it controls things. In one aspect, it's very encouraging because hearing stories like that, you're like, okay, maybe I can do things, say things to better improve my health, better improve my relationships, but also maybe there's things that can really, really hurt me, like the
For sure.
nocebo, right? So
For sure.
it's a little bit scary.
Yeah, it just reminds us how powerful we are, you know? And just because our thoughts are on the inside and they're technically invisible, they're the most powerful things on the face of this earth, truly. And so it's like when people are wanting to do personal development or they're wanting to grow, it's like, well, what are you like what's the conversation inside your head? Because that's going to inform where you're headed, you know? And it's just so wild when we reclaim our power through things like breath work and we're reminded every single day how powerful we are because we're feeling it. It can really truly change the trajectory of our life, you know?
You mentioned earlier facilitating breath work for 30 military guys, right? I'm curious of your thoughts of like men versus women in breath work. As Angie kind of mentioned earlier, like men, we hold shit in. We're not crying as much. It's kind of taboo to be vulnerable. I mean, fuck, especially if you're an athlete, right? It's like, or even in a fighting sport or whatever. But I'm curious of what you've seen being on the front lines with, hundreds of thousands of breathwork sessions with men, and especially men who kind of come into it a little bit skeptical, right? Like I'm sure there's a lot of guys even listening right now that are like, I don't know, what is this? I mean, I was that way before I experienced it. So what have you kind of seen with men in particular?
I remember the first time that you had a bunch of dudes downstairs at our house doing breath work. Dude, I was like, they're 100% like 15 dudes having an orgy down there. Like, what is going on down there? Like, are they okay? And I was cracking up because I had just heard about breath work. So I'm like, why are there a bunch of dudes on there like screaming and crying, like breathing all creepy. And you're like, it's fine. It's fine. It's great. They're healing, you know? And I'm like, what the fuck is happening down there? You know?
I
And
remember
I
that
was
day.
like, dude, are they okay? You're like, oh yeah, it's fine. Like dudes are supposed to do this. And now I love seeing guys cry or just move or shake or scream because I feel like Mike said, they're not given that same permission slip in society to emote. And I 150 million% believe that is why dudes get heart attacks and women don't, because they literally, you never hear about women getting heart
That's a
attacks.
great point.
You hear about
That's
men
a
getting
really
heart
great
attacks
point.
because that heart organ is literally suppressed.
Yeah, that's
There's
a great
dudes
point.
getting heart attacks every single day and dying from them. And I believe our dad had one. He survived it, but it's suppressed emotions.
Of
150
course.
million%.
Women
course.
don't really get heart attacks.
No.
Nowhere near the rate of men.
No, we have
And
other
heart
issues,
disease is the number
but
one issue right now, I think, in the country, right? I mean,
Yeah. Is it above cancer?
it might be.
I think it is.
That's really interesting what you just said about the heart attack.
Oh yeah.
And it's like years and years of right. And Western medicine can't quite nail that down because there's nothing to really quantify
That's
with
right.
emotional stress,
That's
right?
right. Well, I taught breathwork at a maximum security prison in Northern California a couple years ago.
Holy shit.
It was wild. Yeah, it was me and about 30 inmates like who were in there for life.
Wow.
Yeah, it was wild. Like they all like killed people and shit. It was.
How did that come about? Was it
They
the
reached out to
state?
me. They reached out to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
The state. They reached out to me. They said, "Do you want to come do breathwork for our inmates?" And I'm like, my first response was no, that's
Right.
terrifying. And then my second response was like, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
So I went there and I taught breathwork there, and it was such a beautiful experience. And they were all bawling their eyes at the end. And I remember this one guy, he came up to me and he had a shaved head with tattoos all over his face. He had these crystal blue eyes, and he came up to me and he was like, I've never felt my heart until this moment. And I just looked at him and I was like, I had tears in my eyes as well. And he's like, if I felt my heart, if I knew how to do this, I would not be here right now.
Holy
I just
shit.
had like goosebumps. It was wild. And so to go back to like the military thing and men and breath work, the reason why it's so powerful for men is because there's a physical doing like aspect to it, right? Where if I told those 30 guys, hey guys, just sit here and meditate, it wouldn't land. But because there's an action behind it, and men are very achievement focused, obviously there's like a doing, there's an action. It's the action that gets them into the beingness or into their heart. And so it's almost like a challenge for men. I know when like I have events at my house and it's Eric and his friends, it's almost like they're all competing with each other, which is hilarious because it's like the opposite, whatever. But it's like whatever works, right? So it's like they do that. They go really hard at it, and then they drop into the space where they feel their heart, their mind is clear. They're like, oh my gosh, this is what it feels like to be in your body. Because yeah, to your point, it's like our society sucks for the emotionality of men. Like there's not really space for them to emote and release. And they, it's like they're human. You got to, or else you're just going to be emotionally constipated and have all of these health issues and all this kind of bullshit happening. So I think breathwork is a beautiful avenue for men to actually go there. Yeah. And it's been so fun, going into men's masterminds and teaching breathwork, at those retreats.
It'd be fascinating to see a correlational study between men who practice breathwork and heart attacks versus men who don't. And I just love to tell that to any man in my life who I know and care about. Cause I'm like, dude, as cheesy as it is to say, do the work, like do the work, because it does suck that they don't seem to have the same permission slip as we do, where women, the feminine energy is to be sporadic and crazy and emotional and cry and then scream. And then, it's like, that's just kind of who we are. And it's
Do you remember
great.
Eric's nickname for me? He calls me the Pacific.
Like
the Pacific Ocean, because it's just fucking crazy.
It's waves. You don't know
like
what you're gonna get.
Yeah, exactly. So unpredictable.
But that's actually really healthy as creatures to know, like, I'm mad, I'm gonna go be mad. I'm sad, I'm gonna go be sad. Like, be the emotion that you're feeling and express it versus holding it in. I see like a pressure cooker. It's like a pot on the stove that eventually it's gonna break, and that's a heart attack.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. So, dudes, you gotta breathe. So, for somebody listening who's like, how the cheese balls do I even start? How do I do this? Make it, how do I make this a daily habit? Even me, I need to get back into it. You're inspiring me right now to get back into it. So
There's this great app called Pause Breathwork in the App Store, and there's a free 14-day trial.
There you go. No, honestly.
I actually, where we're recording this podcast right now is where I record all the tracks for the Pause Breathwork app, which is really fun. I love this studio so much. Shout out Signature Sound. So yeah, there's 3-minute tracks, there's 5-minute tracks, there's 10-minute tracks, there's 25-minute tracks, there's 45-minute tracks, and it's all rhythmic breath work. So as you're doing it, it just feels so good as you're doing it, and whatever outcome you want, you just hit the time and hit the outcome that you want. So whether it's clearing your mind, energy boosting, finding your confidence, clearing stress, whatever it is, yeah, I would say do that.
Yeah, I mean, to the guys listening, just try it. It's something that it's really transformational. It's incredibly powerful. And if you don't like it, it's such low risk, high reward, right? I mean, you coined the phrase, like, you are the drug. I mean, it's not a pill you're taking. It's free. It's your breath. It's something you have within you. So I think it's worth guys trying once or twice. I know for me personally, I needed to kind of get started in person. So for me, kind of
That's
trying
right.
to find like the in-person breath work was really important, and just more than it just made me feel connected. And then once I experienced it, I was like, oh shit, now I can do it through an app. Now I
Yeah.
can, yeah. So
Totally.
um,
Yeah, you trained with one of our facilitators, didn't you?
yeah, with Stevie. Shout out to Stevie.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
love her.
what does it look like for you now? Like today, what did you do?
So I dream a lot. Do you guys dream a lot? Like you wake up and you're like, whoa, I don't know. My brain is very active at night, like solving problems and stuff like that. So when I wake up in the morning, I generally feel a little bit not anxious, but just like, whoa, like it just feels a little bit like I want to clear the slate. So I'll do 10 minutes of continual breath work in the morning. I'll do a 25-minute session at some point in my day, normally right before lunch, and then I'll do another 10 minutes right before bed as well. So
Wow.
10 minutes in the morning, 25 minutes at some point in the day, and then 10 minutes at night. At Pause, we do breath work to start every single meeting. So 3 minutes of breath work every single meeting, whether it's like a one-to-one or our marketing meetings or whatever, we're always doing breath work as a team. So yeah, that's kind of like my cadence right now, but it also changes based on what I need. Sometimes I need like longer, like more like an hour long sessions. But right now that 10 in the morning, 10 in the evening, 25 in the middle of the day, that's sort of the cadence that feels like quite nice right
And
now.
are you laying down, sitting up? What type of breath? Give them the
Yeah.
juicy specifics.
So for the in the morning, I choose one of the more activating breaths. So the triactive breath, the one that I shared with you guys.
oh, no nostril.
And that's
That's
two
all mouth.
inhales.
Yeah, 2 inhales through the mouth,
Right.
1 exhale through the mouth.
Right.
Yeah.
Ooh, that feels good.
Yeah, it's so good.
And it's okay to get a little lightheaded with
Oh
that.
yeah, you'll definitely get lightheaded for the first like
Just
3
don't-
minutes or so.
Right. Don't be operating like a 18-wheeler.
Exactly. Don't do that, or don't be
Insert
driving. or
disclaimer
whatever.
here.
Yeah, exactly. And then for like the 25-minute one during the middle of the day, I'll do the blow breath, which is just in and out through the mouth. That's where the abs come from. That one.
That's got to be good for your diaphragm.
I've heard that called fire breath too.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa. That one I could see getting lightheaded or wanting to puke.
Well, let me ask you, what do you do in that instance when you do start to feel dizzy? Like, how do you know, do I keep pushing or do I back off?
Again, it's like that feeling from the body. Like if your body is like, whoa, 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 whoa,
Okay.
then like slow it down.
Got it.
But if the mind is just like, what are you doing? Don't do that. If the mind feels chaotic, then don't listen to the mind. Just feel into the body. The messages from our body are often very clear. It's like, no. Versus the fear of the mind is often very chaotic, riddled with a bunch of stories of blah, 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 blah. Like, don't do that because what's going to happen? Right?
Yeah.
So the quality of the no is different, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely does. You got to listen to your gut.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So then in the evening, I'll do more of a relaxing breath. So just deep breath in. And then like a sigh, exhale that's relaxed, because I don't want to energize my body at night, obviously. So right before I crawl into bed, I'll do 10 minutes of that, and then I'll get into bed.
I read James Nestor's book,
I
Breath.
love him.
Right.
Yeah, James is great.
I'm curious of your thought. One of the most fascinating things that in the book, when he talked about the experiment of how he only did mouth breathing for maybe it was like 30 days and his health like significantly declined
Mhm.
to the point where like my girlfriend too read the book, and we were taping our mouths closed at night. I'd love to hear a little bit about that from you. And like, do you just naturally breathe through your nose? Or I know for me, I've broken my nose like 3 times getting punched in the face. So it's tough for me, but I'm trying to like breathe out of my nose a little bit better.
Yeah.
Is that something that you guys also kind of teach, or is that a different segment?
It's kind of different. I actually had James on my podcast because everyone was asking me this, like, Sam, you're teaching to breathe out of the mouth, but James says don't. I'm like, James, get on the podcast. Let's clear this up.
Yeah.
So he came on our show, and essentially what he's talking about in that book is chronically, like, where, like, how are you breathing most of the time?
Long term.
If you're breathing through your mouth most of your day, like 24, so let's say 24 hours of your day, that's not good. But if you're doing breath work for 25 minutes through the mouth helps increase the lung capacity, so it makes it easier to do it. That is totally fine. I definitely recommend breathing through the nose as much as possible when you're not doing breath work. So same ideology as James, but I definitely recommend using the mouth to do breath work because it creates it's more intense. Yeah.
I've been trying to do that more just on a daily basis, being more aware of it. When I'm anxious, I just close my mouth and it just feels good. And when I sleep, I try to tell myself before I go to bed, don't open your mouth. Don't eat any spiders. Don't open your mouth.
Exactly.
And then I hold my breath.
Yeah.
Don't eat any spiders.
And I tried the mouth tape, but in the middle of the night, I just rip it off because I'm just like, oh, what is this? You know.
Yeah.
But
Eric has like a nasal thing happening, and so it's hard for him to breathe out of his nose as well. Same with you.
it's sexy too. You know, it's great. Clay loves it.
You're real the other day.
He loves
dude.
it. He's like, wow, what's happening? This is a great decision I made with my life. You know, wondering why I don't have kids. But anyways, Sam. So that's what you do daily. I love that. That's so doable for anyone listening. The busy mom, the busy parent, the athlete, the dad who's crushing it, whatever he's doing. Like anybody listening right now has 10, 15 minutes while they're doing their laundry or cooking or right. You can kind of multitask kind of with it. Well, actually,
so there's 2 different types of breath work, right? There's integrative and meditative. So integrative breath work is doing breath as you're doing other things, like being aware and conscious of your breath as you are washing dishes or vacuuming or folding laundry. Because I know you're such a domestic goddess, Angie. You're doing this shit all the time.
Vacuuming all day. Just breathing through my nose while I'm vacuuming. Thinking of Sam. You are the drug.
Now I think about it, I've never seen you even hold a vacuum. I've never seen you even wash a dish.
I'm actually like obsessed with cleaning now.
I'm not even joking.
No, I'm being dead serious. I'm like psycho about it.
Oh,
now.
are you? Okay.
Yeah.
Really?
Must have changed.
When did this happen?
About 31. I know because I was when I moved to Austin.
So after
about
we lived together.
31.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
recently. Yeah. Exactly. Sam's like, so after we lived together.
About
after
31.
you left your shit all over the house.
Yeah, I just didn't care in my 20s, which most people in their 20s don't care, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like super anal about my physical space being clean now.
I actually did notice that last time I was at your house in Austin. I'm like, dang, it is so clean in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Clay is like, wow. It just didn't hit me till I was in my early 30s. Yeah. When I realized that when my space is clean, my brain can be cleaner and my ADD just can get out of control. And so, yeah, now I'm very like, when are the cleaners coming in? This needs to be in this. I'm like, I get mad at Clay now if things aren't clean.
Really?
So yeah, it's switched. So it's funny because when we started dating, he was more clean and now I am. And he's like, what the frick? I'm like, put that.
That's awesome though.
Put that
Are as highly sensitive people, environment is everything, right? From like the cleanliness to the people that we hang out with, to the conversations that we have, to the food that we eat, like everything has such a big impact on us energetically.
Well, I'm just in a minimalistic season of my life, like doing less better, like less friends, but more quality.
Did I make the cut in that less friends?
No, you did not.
Oh, damn it. Maybe next year.
Maybe next year. But, you know, we talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
Like less, less sounds so good. Like less shit, like less projects, being more focused, like saying no to things that you don't really want to do. Like not going to all of the social things like we did in our 20s because we thought we had to. Now it's like, unless you really want to go, no, don't go. Like I think
feels
as you get
so
older,
good. I love getting older.
Yeah,
I really do.
You
it is
do.
like there's nothing to prove. I was actually having this conversation with someone the other day of like, I felt like my 20s was all about achieve, 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 achieve. And now in my 30s, it's all about how can I have everything I desire now. And now it's just about expanding, right? Like I don't need any like new friends. Let's just expand the ones we have. I don't need to start any new business right now. I'm just going to expand the one I have.
Yeah.
Deepen my relationship. You know, it's like less but better, to your
Yeah.
point.
Well, we've talked about this a lot, the
Yes,
proving
gosh.
energy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
When it shifts, it's a weird moment in your life
Mhm.
when you're like, oh, I worked to make money to prove to people I could. But now that I don't care what people think and I don't need to prove to anyone,
Yeah.
what's the fire? What's the fuel? You have to find
Right.
this new motivation. It has to
Mhm.
be of service or helping people or being obsessed with what you're doing. Because once that wears off, which is actually a very healthy thing to wear off, it's ego, you're like, wait, I have nothing to prove. But proving energy, like FU energy, can work for, I mean, it was
Oh,
most of
yeah.
my mid-20s, especially when
Yeah.
we were 25 to 29
sure.
together.
For sure.
Like you and I had such proving energy that it
Mhm.
made me a lot of money and it got me a lot of things. But now that I don't have that as much, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a whole podcast.
I feel like we did record a podcast on this on your show, maybe.
I think we did somewhat. Yeah.
Somewhat,
We
maybe?
dived
Yeah.
into it a little
Yeah,
bit,
yeah.
but it is an interesting moment when
Yeah,
that shifts. Because you're
definitely.
like, oh, I don't have to prove to anybody anything.
Yeah.
You know?
So I want to ask you, Sam. I have an idea, a vague idea of what the answer will be, but what we want to do is we want to ask all of our guests what they feel like the best medicine is. And I mean, obviously, we've been talking for like an hour or so, but definitely wanted to ask you what you feel like the best medicine is, and what that means to us is kind of what's gotten you through some of the hardest times of your life, rather. So yeah, just wanted to tee that up and ask
Say a really good vibrator.
you. That was not the answer I was expecting. So thank you for switching it up. Yeah,
This is the X-rated version.
it's like 1A, 1B. What would 1B be? Yeah.
1A, 1B.
Yeah, I mean, God, of course, breathwork. It's my whole mission. It's my passion.
Mhm.
I just, what I love most about it is the fact that it's an experience, right? You're giving people an experience of who they are and they're getting connected back into them, which is the most powerful place. And it's not about trying to convince someone of anything. It's like, yo, do this thing and like you tell me how you feel. And I think what that does is it helps people reclaim their power and it helps them remember that they are their own drug. And it's universal. You don't have to, there's no prerequisites for this. Anyone on the planet can do this. And that's what I love so much about having an app and technology. It's like anyone with a phone has access to this to feel better, to feel more clear, to feel more aligned. And that is just so exciting for me. And it's accessible and it's like, doesn't cost anything. It's the best. It's the best.
You mentioned the Pause Breathwork app, which highly recommend. Where else can kind of people find you, or is there anything else that you personally are working on with Pause or just
yeah.
with Sam?
So we are starting to get into virtual reality type stuff,
Oh.
which is really
Oh,
exciting.
Like
Shit.
Oculus? Like okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Damn, that's
it's like, how
cool.
can we use technology for good
Yeah.
and give people like a whole body experience of breathwork? So we're kind of like taking it up to the next level right now, which feels really exciting. We're launching in person. We're having chapters all around America where there's going to be breathwork facilitators in different cities running multiple events every like multiple times a week, which feels really exciting to like pull community together and like really be the catalyst for in-person connection. Yeah, just growing our app and welcoming in more and more people into our facilitator training, which is going to advance our mission even more. That's been the coolest part, is like seeing these people come in and do our 6-month training and then go out and teach breathwork to thousands. I mean, Stevie's a perfect example, right? She did our training and then you had an opportunity of changing your life through the work. And there's just so many amazing people that I want to share that with. So, and then, yeah, you can find me on Instagram.
Being a weirdo.
Being a weirdo on Instagram.
Tell them your Instagram account and your OnlyFans account, just so they. It's just feet pictures, though, right?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. You want to know what you're getting into.
And pinky.
Ooh.
Pinky and feet.
You know,
Okay.
that's it.
That pinky.
They call me
though.
the pinky foot.
They call. Who's they?
I don't know.
Okay, so what would you say to close it out? So that's your best.
Oh wait,
medicine.
my Instagram is Samantha
Yeah,
Skelly.
put-
Oh yeah. Oh shit, she didn't even say it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's easy to find. It's her
type,
name.
Just type in what do
Yeah.
they call you? The pinky?
The pinky foot.
The pinky
The
foot?
pinky foot on
Yeah.
OnlyFans.
What would you, to close it out, what would you say to the woman or the man listening who's feeling really anxious right now? Like just a last little.
Yeah, I think it goes back to like what we shared of like how our thoughts are creating our reality. Like if you're feeling anxious, where are your thoughts right now? What are we focused on, right? And really truly try. It's like our life force is the most valuable currency on the planet, right? So our life force, where we put our attention, like we are giving so many things value. And when we give something value, we amplify it. So if we are giving the thought of I am not worthy energy, we're amplifying that, we're creating it. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so if you're feeling anxious, what are your thoughts and how can we be the antidote? What is the anecdotal, is that the word?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great word.
Thought to what you're currently focused on, and how can we create an entirely new vibration? Just like my experience last night of like, okay, whoa, that happened, and let me bring it back because I know the power of my own thoughts and how I can shift my reality through my thoughts. And so that's the biggest thing, like no lazy thoughts. No lazy thoughts. Like the second we check out, because we have these survival brains, our brain is going to look for like how we're going to die. And we don't live in a world where we don't need that right now. Right? And so no sloppy thoughts. You can have sloppy joes, but no sloppy thoughts.
There it is. That's going to be the intro.
That was so good. We'll have to bring you back on again because there's always, I just want to go forever.
Oh my God,
with Sam.
I know. We could have a
You're
5-hour
just the grandma's
podcast.
tits, man.
Saggy,
You're just
saggy and juicy.
You're just, you're just the saggy, juicy grandma's tits, you know? That's what I think of when I think.
Saggy and juicy.
Oh, so good. Is that where we close it out? I think
Thanks for
so.
doing this.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. This has been amazing.
Woo! All right. In today's episode, breathwork is the best medicine.
Adios.
Dun, dun, dun.
Bye.